Yo, what's going on? It's JD1983 and I'm back bringing you another sneaker performance review courtesy of sneakershoebox.com. Check us out. So the shoe for the day is Adizero Rose 2.5. I got a lot to cover. I've really been looking forward to doing this review and playing ball in this shoe, and the shoe did not disappoint. So let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, so here it is, Adizero Rose 2.5. Crazy good shoe. I'm 100% satisfied with the shoe. There are areas for improvement, but you're never going to find the perfect basketball shoe. If you are familiar with the way I go about these reviews, I usually start with the traction pattern and then kind of flow my way up. So this is going to be no different. So let's get with the outsole. Here you see a white solid rubber outsole, and it is not a consistent, herringbone design, but that's 100% okay with me because it's all about how it performs on court, right? I've been fooled before. I've had some shoes that have herringbone that just sucked, and then I've had some like the Flyway 2 that did not have anything close to herringbone, but was awesome. This one was more on the awesome side. The traction here was great from front to back. It was darn near perfect. On a clean court, you couldn't really get much better than this. Even on a dusty court, it still held its own. Quick wipe, you're good to go after that. If you look at it, it's very similar to what you see on the Crazy Light. I'll talk more about the Crazy Light comparisons a little bit later, but front to back, it was perfect. Side to side, not quite as good, but it still worked. The only problem areas I saw were right around here. So if you were like coming around a screen or trying to stop real quick and change directions, you ended up running into it so where you were actually moving in the same direction, kind of parallel with the traction pattern, which did not work very well. I got a lot of slippage when I'm coming around screens or trying to cut real quick or something like that. As a guard, I did not like this area right here. And then what they did differently between this and the 2.0, they on the 2.0 had some of this traction come up and around here. So you were covered if you were coming around something like that, but they got rid of it. It is textured. I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well, but it is slightly textured, and that should help, but I don't see it lasting very long. But I think the traction pattern overall is pretty darn good for a 1 guard, a 2 guard, or maybe even a 3 guard if you're pretty light on your feet. So I'm fairly happy with it. And like I said, on a clean court, it really did the job quite well. So let's move on to the cushioning. Cushioning. Now, disclaimer. If you are used to playing ball in Nikes or anything with Max Air or a really softer, springier kind of cushion, this is going to be 100% different than anything you have ever played in. This is a full foam-based cushion. Let's talk about the LeBron 8 V1 and V2 real quick. If you were fortunate enough to own the LeBron 8 V1 or V2, you understand what I mean by in-foot, like, as soon as you put your foot in it, comfort. And that is probably one of the most comfortable shoes for initial impression that I've ever played in or ever worn in general. As soon as you put your foot in it, it feels like you're walking on pillows. A lot of people say the same thing about the Jordan 13. This does not fall into that category. You don't get that warm fuzzy like, oh man, that's comfortable when you put your foot into it. It's actually quite the opposite. This shoe is ridiculously firm. It is so firm when you first put your foot into it. It feels like you're just standing on the floor. It really does. It's not one of those that, man, this feels comfortable. But I will let you know, it softens up a lot as you play in it. The more you play in them, honestly, the better it feels. And I heard a buddy of mine say it, and I didn't really believe it when he was talking about the Rose 2.0. But trust me, it softens up a lot and it gets way more comfortable. You get used to it. So while we're talking about the cushioning, I'm not just going to focus on the midsole. I'm actually going to talk a lot about this, which is the insole that comes with this shoe. Now, this is not Ortholite. This is not like one of those Ortholite insoles that Nike uses. It actually is a lot more soft than what Nike uses. It's softer and it's thicker. Realistically, it's hard to explain how it feels, but it kind of feels like some sort of foam gel hybrid, you know those gel inserts that you can buy feel. This kind of feels like if one of those gel inserts and a regular foam, you know, insole had a baby, this would be the result. This is kind of weird. It doesn't mold to your foot at all, which is fine with me. It holds up pretty well. I'm not sure either if this has those same kind of antimicrobial funk fighting properties that Ortholite has, but this was awesome. And to me, when it comes time to judge the actual overall impression of cushioning when it comes to a shoe, I look at two things. I look at, one, the insole, and I also look at the midsole, you know, because they do work together to give you the overall feel of cushion for that shoe. And don't get me wrong, this midsole is awesome. I mean, look at all these creases around here. Those creases right there are my midsole doing its job, you know, shock absorption and kind of breaking my fall, so to speak, when I jump and all that good stuff. And it did its job just fine. But this was actually more important. In my opinion, this is more important than the midsole, because this is actually providing you that, you know, right next to foot comfort. And here's why. You look in here, that little star pattern white thing right there, that's actually the midsole of the shoe, right? And all around that you see everything is black, right? Everything black that you see, that is the sprint frame of this shoe, right? If you're familiar with the Crazy Light or the Rose 2.0, you will know the term sprint frame. Let's see if I can get it to show up there. Maybe you can see that, maybe you can't, don't know. But that sprint frame actually runs right under the insole of the shoe, and everywhere you see black, that is actually the sprint frame, with the exception of that star pattern right there, which is a cutout for the midsole to actually come through. All the way up to the very front up here, where you see this kind of stitching that goes up here and comes down. Forward of that is actually where the midsole does start again, but from here back, that is all TPU, baby. That is all sprint frame. So that's why I say this is so important, because without a thick, meaty, beefy midsole, insole that could stand up to that, it would be really painful to play ball in. So you feel very close to the ground in this shoe. You really do get a responsive feel, and it's perfect for a guard, maybe even a 2 or a 3. Fit, I did have some issues, but for the most part, the pros outweighed the cons. I did have to size down in these, actually. My true size is an 11, and I went with a 10.5 here because, in my opinion, Adidas tend to run a little bit small lengthwise. So I went with a 10.5 here, and I'm pretty happy with the fit that I got. Heel lockdown was amazing in this shoe. Behind traction, I think the heel lockdown is probably the most important thing that you could look for when you're looking for a performance shoe. Because here we are in a day and age where mid-cut and low-cut shoes are dominating the market, and a shoe's ability to keep your heel and Achilles tendon in place and prevent them from moving is paramount when it comes to preventing ankle injuries. So heel lockdown was great in this shoe. The GeoFit technology that they use, which is what the collar is made of here on this red section here, here again on the medial side of the shoe, and right here on the tongue. That GeoFit, all it is memory foam. It's very firm, and what it does is it actually molds to the shape of your ankle bone. So this actually fits very, very comfortably around my ankles. If I do end up wearing like a lower cut sock, it doesn't feel all scratchy. It's very soft material. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm very happy with the heel lockdown and that fit. But this shoe is here, I'll get to that in a second. But one last thing I want to talk about is the traditional lacing. I like the fact that they went with a traditional lacing system here instead of what they did with the Rose 2.0 with the bungee cords. So I'm pretty happy about that. Now, got to get to the bad. And the bad thing is this shoe is 12 ounces. Well, wait a minute. That should be a good thing. It's really light. It is really light, but I say it's a bad thing because since it is light, it means that there's less cushioning in certain areas of the shoe, mainly here on the edges of the tongue and around these eyelets. Okay, so if I tied this shoe up just perfectly, it was 100% fine, didn't have any problems with it, right? But if I tied them too quickly and kind of cocked the tongue off to one side or the other, what happened was over here is really, really thin, and these eyelets are made of metal. So they may look nice and flush here, which they are, but if you flip them over, they actually protrude and stick up a little bit from the actual material here on the upper, right? So if that tongue wasn't lined up just right, these metal eyelets would dig down into the skin on my feet, and it would get really painful over time. A quick relacing, it was fine, but I just found it to be really, really annoying when I'm trying to play ball, and the next thing you know, I get this sharp pain right here, and I look down and the tongue is like this, and I'm like, all right guys, time out, I gotta retie my shoes. I didn't like having to do that 2 or 3 times, but you know, I got used to it, and I just played around with how I tied it, and I didn't really tie it too tight down here. And then once I got up to this area, then I would really pull them tight, get that lockdown that I needed, and it wasn't a problem anymore. That was the biggest issue with me. Other than that, I did find the fit to be a little inconsistent. Anybody that played in the Rose 2.0 will tell you that throughout the shoe it was consistently narrow, and if you got narrow feet, that worked really well for you. For me, I don't have narrow feet, so I really did not like the fit of the shoe, although it was a great performance shoe. It's hard to be kind of, you know, non-biased when the shoe doesn't work for you. That shoe did not work for me, but it was still an awesome shoe. This shoe does work for me, and here's why. It is really wide in the heel, but it's narrow in the midfoot and really wide up here. Now, what does that mean? It's a lot of room back here for me. It's nice and snug and keeps my foot contained here, and it was perfect for me here since I've got wider feet. If you don't have wide feet and you have narrow feet, this area up here might be a problem for you. And like I said, this does a great job of keeping your foot contained here and here and here, so the ankle support is awesome. The Sprint frame does everything that it's supposed to do. It's a perfect balance of flexibility and rigidity, and gives you a nice little bounce back, and it keeps your foot in place when you're coming around cuts and prevents outward motion like this when you're coming around cuts. I was real happy with it. The breathability, I mean, look, it's Sprint Web. What can you do? Look at this. You can probably see my finger through here. It's completely see-through, all of this. So you know it's breathable, and you know it's got a couple of perforations here up in the toe box area, and I thought that they were pretty inadequate personally, but it does such a good job of supporting your foot and preventing movement that it doesn't even really matter, you know. And I say that because if you have a problem where you have breathability issues and you got extra room, you know, moisture and movement don't really work too well when it comes to a performance shoe. You're gonna get blisters galore, and that is not fun. Or you'll end up with athlete's foot like Jordan did with the Jordan 8. So other than that, I'm pretty happy with it, and that's all I have for the review. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. So like I said, I'm real happy with the shoe, but I am confused about one thing. Look at this shoe. You know, it's a nice clean silhouette, but let me share this with you. This is a carryover from the Crazy Light. Okay? This Sprint Web is totally different than what was on the Rose 2.0. It is a carryover from the Crazy Light. This high collar, this design right here, they got rid of that low cut here, is a carryover from the Crazy Light. And then look at the silhouette. If you were to hold this side by side with the Crazy Light and just ignore all the details, so I don't really think this is a mid-season version of the Rose 2.0 at all. If anything, I'd call this thing Crazy Light 2, because it performs very similar to the Crazy Light. It looks a lot like the Crazy Light, but it's a better shoe than the Crazy Light. So came in at 110 bucks, which is awesome. That is pretty much the basement when it comes to the cost range of performance sneakers. The only thing less than that when you're talking about a signature model would be the KD4. So I'm real happy with this shoe overall. It's got a great foot feel to it. It performed well, and that's all I got. I enjoyed it, and I hope this helps you make a well-informed, educated decision over what shoe you're gonna use for your next game. I always recommend try the shoe on first before you buy it. Don't buy online for a performance shoe. I recommend you try it on. So this is JD1983 signing out. Sneakershoebox.com. Check us out on the site, and you can follow me on Twitter at nuke_mechanic. And give me your feedback. Tell me what you thought about the review, and also let me know what other shoes you'd like to see me review coming up in the future. So JD1983, Sneakershoebox.com. Peace.